So I've had some folks asking recently if I wouldn't mind sharing a little bit of the method behind the madness that goes into the program that I do for us here at Circle City Strength and Conditioning CrossFit Brownsburg. So I thought I'd take us through the previous week, this past week of our programming, kind of give you a little insight. I'd preface that by saying, if you're programming for yourself at another gym, this is by no means a tutorial on how to do programming. That's an entire seminar, right? So this is just kind of a little the insight and the thinking behind the programming that we've done this past week. We'll just take it one day at a time and give you my thoughts on it. And if you have other questions, feel free to shoot me a message. You can do that through our YouTube comments. You can do that through my email, chris@circlecitysc.com. Okay, so here we go. Let's take a look back this previous Monday. Right now we're in the midst of the CrossFit Games Open Qualifiers, so that was kind of a no-brainer on programming. It's 14.3. 14.3 though is an 8-minute AMRAP, so that's relatively short in some respects, but the workout itself, 8 minutes felt like a long time for most of us. But looking at what we were doing here, we're talking about basically a couplet of deadlifts and box jumps. Again, start at deadlift at 10 reps, prescribed weights of 135 and 95, and then 15 box jumps at 24 inches and 20. Progressively throughout that couplet, the box step-ups or box jumps were staying the same rep scheme. The deadlifts are going up by 5 reps as well as going up in poundage. So the deeper you got into that, the more volume, the more work you're going to be putting in. A lot of folks didn't make it that deep into it. So I'm looking at the rest of the week of the program. I take that into consideration. So some folks are going to be pretty smoked. Their posterior chains will be pretty smoked for 3 days probably from that, but a lot of folks are going to recover from that relatively quick, probably due to the time domain in my opinion, and the loads aren't that substantial. There's just a lot of volume in terms of reps on the deadlifts for some folks. For others, again, they're going to bounce back in 24 hours or so from that. Talking about your endocrine system, neurological system, pretty easy to recover from. But day 2, on Tuesday, what I was looking for here, after doing something like that, knowing folks are going to be pretty tight, pretty stiff from the deadlifts, you're kind of locked into that fixed range of motion between just deadlifting and box jumps. So I want to get us moving. I want to get the heart rate up. I want to keep it up for a longer duration, probably 20 minutes plus is what I was looking for. But somewhat more body weight oriented, or if there was weight involved, it needed to be light. And I wanted some big movements, some big global compound exercises, if you will. So with that, I went with pull-ups, again, body weight. So back it up a little bit. We did Daniel, which is a CrossFit Hero WOD, right? Hero WODs, they tend to be pretty high in volume and intensity to some degree, but I didn't feel like this was anything that was going to crush us for the rest of the week with what I had in mind. So we'll look at that shortly. So 50 pull-ups to start it off. A lot of folks are scaling that at our gym. Regardless, it's a lot of pull-ups. Mainly we train a lot of strict pull-ups here, so I know my folks that have the capacity for strict pull-ups, the work that we do, the foundation, I'm not concerned about doing high volume, high rep pull-ups on occasion, right? From there it was 50 pull-ups into a 400-meter run. Again, I wanted to get us moving, get us really running. It was a perfect day out for temperature-wise. And then thrusters, 21 thrusters. Again, the prescribed weights are 95 and 65 on that. So not fun by any stretch of the imagination, but also something most folks are going to get through it without too much trouble. And scaling is always an option as well. So when we look at the 800-meter run after that, again, getting out there, getting moving, get the heart pumping, and then coming back for another 21 thrusters. Second round of that, it was not fun. Nobody's having fun at that point. But again, it was kind of serving the purpose here. Next up was a 400-meter run, and then we closed that out with a 50 pull-ups. So again, with that, it was a lot. It was challenging. It was intense. But again, it's something that mentally I like to throw out a challenge once in a while as well. When we get into those longer WODs that take beyond the 20-minute domain that we don't, some folks don't often get into. So it's kind of a mental challenge as well. We would take a step back to Monday. One thing I didn't mention was we generally have some kind of mobility corrective at the end of our workouts, if not within the workout. So that day we did some double tennis ball, a peanut essentially for the spine. We worked low thoracic spine up through high thoracic spine is what we were shooting for on that. Again, the purpose of that was knowing that the posterior chain was pretty smoked from all the deadlifts. So I kind of wanted to address that early, right after the workout, and kind of push some of that tissue, soften it up, get it supple again. The mobility after Daniel was had everybody with their barbell doing their calf smash for about 4 minutes per leg. Again, just kind of push that tissue around a little bit after having done box jumps or step ups the previous day, and then the 600 meters worth of running done on Tuesday. So let's move on over to Wednesday. Over here, what I was looking for was something, I want to throw in some interval type work here. But I also want to get some kind of Olympic weightlifting exercise in here, whether it be a clean and jerk, snatch, or some progression on that. But I also want to keep the idea of moving because we are in the midst of the games qualifiers. You know, we're not doing so many do a set, rest type stuff. We're moving a little bit more at this point in the game. Maybe that's another video down the road talking about how we structure the big picture stuff here seasonally, annually, and so forth. But again, just talking about the week that we're on. So with this, we did every 2 minutes, we did for 7 rounds. So I chose 7 rounds because 3, 4, 5 rounds really wouldn't have imparted much of a training effect, to be honest, both physically and mentally. So I added the last 2 rounds that made it 7 rounds. Makes you dig a little deeper, makes it a little harder in some respects. But we did power snatch for 5, and prescribed that at 70%. Looking back, maybe we could have done 60, 65, but the people who needed to scale down scaled it. Nobody was getting an ugly form, so we were good to go here. And then 8 burpees. Thinking also we're going to be seeing some burpees coming up in either 14.4, well, we didn't see them 14.4, but that's what I was thinking because they haven't been announced yet, or maybe 14.5. So we've been doing a lot of burpees in our programming lately. From there, took a nice long recovery as needed from there. Then I got into some midline work here, a little bit of mobility, but mostly some midline work as well to keep the structures dealing with the things we need to deal with, essentially. So went with good mornings. Again, kind of coming back to that posterior chain that we were working on Monday. I let them choose their loads. It was for 10 reps, so that would be something you would go pretty light on relative to what was going on maybe on Monday. But I also just wanted to address that posterior chain, get it moving again, get it functioning again early on after having done the previous 2 days. For some people it wasn't a lot of fun, but it worked out well if you scale it right. From there I went into V-ups, which is just a good midline exercise. Something we don't do very often, probably a few times a year we do V-ups. Just to kind of change things up, did 15 reps on that. And then from here we went into hip swivel for 10 reps on each leg. The hip swivel, I like that exercise. I got it from Mountain Athlete and Gray Cook, I think is where it probably came from. But it's just a good exercise, not only some hip mobility and movement patterning, but it's also some good spine, lumbar and thoracic spine mobility as well, because you're getting a little rotation movement here. So let's move on down to Thursday. I programmed the last 2 days some strength bias. The thinking here is sometimes we do our heavy lifting earlier in the week and we're fresh, but with the open wads, that's not necessarily the case. For one. For two, sometimes I like to put heavy stuff at the end of the week. The training effect, you're in a state of, generally most of our athletes are going to be pre-fatigued, so their strength may not be up as high as normal, but coming into a pre-fatigue state, oftentimes it challenges us, and it's not uncommon to see PRs happening at that stage. Even the folks who had trained already on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it just elicits a different training effect than always doing your heavy work on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday when you're relatively fresh. Throwing it at the end of the week, again, I think there's a nice training effect that we do that on occasion, just not the norm. So we looked at, we did bench presses here. Recovery period was a minimum of 2 minutes is what I was asking the athletes to do here. Bench press was 3, 3, 3, and then 4 singles, but I posted no misses. I wasn't necessarily looking for a 1 rep max here. I think that if you're smoked from early in the week and you think you're gonna put up a 1 rep max and whatnot at this point in the game, and you're pushing to the point where you're missing reps, you're setting yourself up mentally for failure. And I wasn't really interested in any 1 rep max unless it just happened to be the case on that day. So that was kind of thinking behind that, but I gave everybody a real big break from any conditioning beyond that. It was just strength day, no conditioning, kind of let the systems chill out from the previous 3 days. From there though, I wanted to get us some good correctives, in particular addressing the shoulder girdle structures, based on all the stuff we've been doing with snatching, the burpees and all the pull-ups from earlier in the week. I think it's real important then once you've had a couple days to recover, get back and do some correctives and reclaim some of those movement patterns. So what I did here was 3 rounds, not for time. Corrective exercise, Y, T's, and L's for 5 each. Again, I got that many years ago from Mountain Athlete. Giving them credit for sure. It's done with a little plate. You do, prescribed was 5 pounds and a 2.5 pound plate. but 5 rounds of the YTL corrective exercise. From there we did another corrective, a seated wall slide for 8 reps. Again, we're just talking about establishing the gliding and the movement pattern for the shoulder girdle, shoulder blades in particular. So 8 reps on that. From there we did a shoulder sweep complex with a knee on the ball that just kind of ties everything together, the midline, and then we take the shoulder through a nice patterning, some movement stuff. Again, just to establish some healthy movement patterns and structures, and addressing all those little stabilizers that might get neglected otherwise. So we're big on correctives, big on mobility here, and keeping people healthy. All right, so moving on down to Friday. Friday was a front squat day. Even though we've done thrusters and some other stuff earlier in the week, I wanted to get us on with some front squats. So with the front squats on Friday, the pattern, the rep scheme was 2 sets of 5, 2 sets of 3, and 3 sets of 1. Again, heaviest possible with no failed reps. Same concept as the bench press, no failed reps. If you happen to get a PR that day, awesome, but that was not the intention of the workout. The intention was just to stimulate with a heavy single and a couple of sets of 5 and 3, but getting into that heavy single under some load. That was kind of the intention there on Friday, and to close out the week with some heavier stuff. Then we did conditioning after that. Again, just a little bit of running, but kind of following the concept I had earlier in the week, a little bit of interval training with that Wednesday snatch and burpee with the remaining 2 minutes of rest. Over here, death by 10 meters is a bit of an interval drill if you've ever done that. You get some rest periods up until you get into that round 16, 17, 18. There's not much rest there. But again, it was just kind of a nice conditioning drill for our athletes, and also getting some running. When we have warmer weather, we've been indoors so much this winter, I want to give us a chance to get out and do some running for our Metcon work or any kind of conditioning we're going to do for that day. So we finished out the day with a pec smash. Again, just with a lacrosse ball, getting that under your pec, trapping that lacrosse ball between your ribs and the floor, and just smashing out those muscles and then putting it through some range of motion. We addressed the shoulder girdle and such on Thursday mostly from a posterior aspect, so I want to get in on Friday on the anterior aspect and smash that stuff out. Again, just getting us supple and ready to roll to finish out our week. So I think that pretty much wraps things up in terms of this past week. The week ahead, we're looking at 14.4, which is that chipper WOD, which is going down here on Monday. Then the rest of the week, I have a few things in mind, but we're leading up towards 14.5. So, you know, we're going to probably back things up a little bit. We'll do some of the movements that we think we'll probably see in 14.5, kind of work on technique and some of those things, and give our athletes a chance to experience some of the things that may show up, that we're thinking anyway, may show up in 14.5. But aside from that, we'll probably back things off in terms of volume throughout the week, just so we have everybody fresh and ready to roll for 14.5. And that'll kind of wrap up a cycle we've been on over the last 5 weeks doing the open WODs, and the previous months prior to that where we were doing some more strength-biased work. So I think that's about it. Again, if you have questions, you want to see more about our programming, you know, if you're into it, by all means, I'll be happy to shoot these videos for you guys. So let us know, and thanks.